welcome to my channel where I talk about books and bookish things. This is part 2 of my November wrap-up. Part 1 was the Evil of Thumb prompts from Kash's Cemeteries channel, and these are the other books I read in November. I read a total of 23 books in November. That's a mixture of, you know, large novels, medium-sized novels, and I think there was 3 novellas. So and one was an Audible. I don't do a lot of audiobooks. It's not really my thing, but somebody sent me one to read, so I thought, and it was a short story, so, oh, well, you know, like a novella, so it was really lovely. It was a good story too, and it was a proper ghosty one, but we'll get to that. So we're going to go quick because there's so many. So firstly, I think we'll do all the physical ones because I've got them to hand. There's only 4 physical ones, and then the other 11 are all on Kindle. I prefer to read on Kindle. And then if I really love the book, I will buy a physical copy. But my preference is to read on a Kindle. It's easier for me with my disability. So the first book we're going to do is The Body by Carol Ellis, which was the Tales Point Horror Book Club Book of November. And this is all about a girl called Melanie who moves to a small town. This happens a lot in Tales Point Horror, by the way. And she takes a job reading to a girl the same age as her who's in a wheelchair and doesn't speak because she's had a fall from a cliff. Anyway, and there's always loads of dodgy characters in Tales Point Horror books, you know. But she starts reading to this girl and she starts trying to communicate with her that perhaps what happened to her wasn't an accident. Perhaps there's something else going on. Perhaps somebody else is missing. And, unusually for Point Horror, the cover makes sense in the book. It's a great read. We had a great discussion about it the other night on Tales Point Horror Book Club channel. Yeah, it was really good. Again, very neglectful parents in these books. But that was one book club. The other book club was the YA Book Club 2023 with Amy McCall. And we read Big Bad Me by Aisling O'Loughlin. Oh, I loved this book. I loved it. Oh, it's basically about this girl called Evie who one day finds out that she's a werewolf. And her sister Kate and her mom have been keeping it secret and basically, you know, medicating her so she doesn't, you know, wolf out. Anyway, somebody's after them, so they have to run, and they end up in this town because their mom's gone missing. They end up in this town where she was last seen, and they check into this bed and breakfast with this, you know, very dark and brooding owner called Kevin, who is also not what he seems. And this is all about, you know, werewolves and vampires and how they, you know, don't get on. And it's such a good book. I can't even tell you how good the dialogue is in this. It's just absolutely brilliant. It reads like a teenage girl is thinking, right? And that's exactly what it is because the book is in Evie's perspective, right? It's just so good. And it's a proper good horror. There's local, you know, animal attacks happening. Local teens are going missing. And it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely loved it. And also a great cover, isn't it? The next one, oh, actually, it's up there, so I'll have to fling a picture up. Is Bookshops and Bone Dust. I actually had an arc of this in January, but I read it again this month because it came out this month. And I also had a beautiful broken binding edition of it. And this is a prequel to Legends and Lattes, which we all love. And basically this is Viv at the start of a barbarian journey when, sadly, on her first quest, she gets injured and she gets laid up in this tiny little coastal town, which, you know, is very boring. And she befriends the local bookshop owner, Fern, and kind of helps her make the bookshop a success. There's a really cute little pet. First got a cute little pet. I think it's called a Griffet, if I remember rightly, called Pot Roast, which is also on the cover. It's basically lots of nefarious goings on in the town that she has to, help with. And it's just, Legends and Lattes is like, it's like a cozy hug, isn't it? This is all about bookshops and books and stories and how people find themselves through reading stories. And the bone dust part is to do with necromancy or sorcery that's going on in the background, but I can't say too much about that because it will spoil it and I don't want to do that. But it's just fantastic. It's so good. And I love Legends and Lattes, but I actually preferred this story. It was fantastic. Yeah, really good. And then the final physical book I read this month was this, which was an arc of The Gathering by C.J. Tudor. I very rarely ask for physical arcs. I'm happy with an ebook. But they actually offered this, so it was fine. I loved C.J. Tudor. I love her work. She's so easy to read, and I mean that in the most complimentary way. It just flows, her story. You instantly get a sense of the characters, the location. It's just a pleasure to read. This is about a woman called Barbara, who is part of the forensic vampire anthropology team. She's a detective. And in this world, there are colonies of vampires that are protected under law. And they usually live on the outskirts of small towns. And they have a very uneasy alliance with the local people. So she gets called to this small Alaskan isolated town where a child, or a teenager, boy, has been killed, and it looks like a vampire attack. And it's very similar to a similar attack that happened 25 years ago. But nothing is ever simple with CJ's books, right? There's so many twists and turns and unravelling of historical evidence and abuse and horror, and it's just incredible. It's basically her take on vampires, and it's brilliant. It's not out until April next year. I believe it's available to pre-order because they've just released the cover. Waterstones are doing a special edition of this, which will have a short story in the back. I've already pre-ordered it. Just incredible. Incredible book. Loved it. I need to get a move on. Okay. So we're going to mix it up because I like to read a lot of different things. So, Between the Stops by Sandi Toksvig. This is basically part memoir, part her on the number 12 bus, travelling around London, pointing out different buildings and areas and explaining their history with anecdotes about her life mixed in. She writes so well, Sandi, and it's really a pleasure to read. It's a joy to read it, So that was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. I always like to have a biography on the go. The second biography I read was Tall Tales and Wee Stories by Billy Connolly. This is basically all of the short story jokes that he did on his stage show for years in book form. So they're very short, basically, the stories he used to tell on stage. I howled laughing. I mean, a lot of them are very inappropriate, but, the man is funny. So that's basically what this is, and it was really good just to pick up and put down during the month. It was great. Next, Punish by Edmund Stone. This, actually, I'll do the other one first. Ignore me. Within by Edmund Stone. This is 3 short stories about 3 different women and how they cope with the horror that comes into their life. Right. Very powerful. The first story especially, which is about a mother, is really horrifying, but not how you'd expect. The second story is about a woman who finds out that she is a witch. And that story is then turned into this, Punish, which was a novel that was published afterwards. And that's the story of that witch from the second story, called Harper. And she's on the run now because the witch hunters are after her. And then they find out where she is. And this is basically her story and her journey of finding out who she is, finding out where her power comes from, and finding out her ancestry. It's such a good book. It's like haunted amulets, and it's just so good. And, you know, houses that disappear and appear, and it's very magical and mythical and really, really good. Really enjoyed it. Next, Unboxed by Brianna Morgan. This is a novella, and it's in the form of a play, and it's written in the form of a play. And it's basically about this YouTuber who runs a paranormal investigation channel, which is very successful, and his girlfriend, trying to think of their name, I think it's Alice's girlfriend, he's called Greg anyway, and he gets sent, or he purchases a mystery box from the dark web, and it all goes a bit awry. And it's basically about, what would you do if everything you loved was going to be taken away from you? And also speaks about the addiction of social media. Very, very good. Small novella, written in play form. Brilliant. Next is A Mouthful of Horror. No, A Mouthful of Ashes. I can't read my own writing. Oh, I do write like a serial killer, though, it's got to be said. Anyway, this is also by Brianna Morgan, and this is basically a retelling of The Lost Boys, but it's really well done. It's about this brother and sister called Kathy and Ramsey, and they move with their mum to a small town. It always happens in small towns. Don't move to small towns, people. They're dangerous. They've recently lost their sister in a car crash, which they both survived. And they start talking to a local group of people who are obviously vampiric. And this is their struggle to remain human. It's a really good book. It's a really good read. It's a short book. It's only a couple of 100 pages. It's really good fun. Next, Found in a Bookshop. Now, this is just a random purchase that I got one day from Kindle, just because it had a bookshop on it. Let's be honest, we're bookish people. If it's got bookshop in the title, I'm probably going to buy it. You know what I mean? So great. Anyway, this is absolutely beautiful. It's set during the pandemic, and it's about this bookshop. I think this is a sequel to a previous one called Lost for Words, which is the name of the bookshop. The owner, Loveday, and her manager, Kelly, they're struggling because obviously people can't come into their bookshop. It's a second-hand bookshop. And they decide they come up with this idea to do book prescriptions. So people can ring up or email or you know, write in and say, look, this is how I'm feeling. I want to talk about, you know, think about this kind of stuff. What would you recommend? And they give them a prescription of books. It's absolutely beautiful book. Underlying all of this is the story of this old couple, and he's dying of cancer, and how they started reading to each other. That's how it all starts, basically. They write to Loveday and say, we used to love reading to each other when we were first married. Can you send us some books? And that's their story kind of pops in and out, along with all the other people who ask for book prescriptions and how the books impact them. And then the story, of course, of the bookshop owner and the staff. It's just so lovely. It's just the most beautiful read. It's incredibly touching. I found it incredibly moving, and I'm not an over emotional person, but it was just incredibly moving. Really brilliant book. Really enjoyed it. Next, Upgrade by Blake Crouch. Now, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch is in my book advent up there, which starts today, because today is the 1st of December. But I had this one on my Kindle, so I thought I would read this one. And it's about gene manipulation, basically. It's very, very scientific heavy. So if that's not your thing, you're not going to enjoy this. It's a sci-fi thriller. I mean, Blake does make the science accessible. He does, but it is very, very science heavy. So it's about this man called Logan, and he works for a department that raids and closes down illegal gene manipulation companies. And then he goes to one place and he gets blown up and starts to change, starts to become more than human, starts to become the perfect human. Everything about him becomes the best it can be. And of course, the department he works for lock him away because, of course, is exactly what they're all scared of. And he gets broken out by his sister, who is also superhuman. And then there's the whole story of how that happened to them and what are they going to do with this gene technology that can make you be the most perfect human specimen. It's brilliant about, you know, morals and ethics and what does it mean to be human? What is it to be human? Absolutely brilliant. Loved it. Looking forward to Dark Matter when I get to it. Next, The Black Velvet Dress. This was the Audible one that I read, and it was sent to me by, the code was sent to me by the narrator of this book, and actually she does a fantastic job. And this is a short story about a woman who sees a black velvet dress in a window and becomes obsessed with it. So she buys it, but things aren't all as they seem, and she starts losing track of what the world is, and almost like she's travelling back in time. It's a ghost story about a ghostly dress. It's absolutely brilliant. And she does narrate it really well. It's a proper, lovely, wintry ghost story. Loved it. Next, The Catacombs by Jeremy Bates. Jeremy Bates? Yes. I actually was going to read the first one that he wrote, which is called The Suicide Forest. But he writes about the weirdest haunted places in the world and turns them into a fiction. This one is about the catacombs underneath Paris and a group of people who decide to go and explore. One of them not very eagerly. And what happens when they get down there, because they find out actually there's other things living in the tunnels that nobody has any idea about. And it's basically their escape. And again, very similar to, you know, the cave in the Midnight Slayer. The catacombs are underground, so without any natural light. So if you don't have light, it is pitch black, claustrophobic, confined. It's a great horror story. Really, really good. Really enjoyed it. Never read anything by him before. Looking forward to reading another one. And then finally, my last read of the month, Love Will Tear Us Apart by C.K. McDonald. I love these books. It's about this newspaper called The Stranger Times that basically publishes the weird and the wacky, right? It's based in Liverpool. Their offices are based in an old church. The editor, Bancroft, is a complete maniac who chases after people with a blunderbuss gun. Hannah is the assistant editor who's got, you know, a ridiculously stupid ex-husband. Then there's Stella, who's the girl who broke in one day, and she has no past and is incredibly powerful. There's Grace, who's the receptionist. And then there's the two journalists, Ox and Reggie. And they also have a ghost journalist called Simon. It's just fantastic. And it's all about them collecting stories about the weird and the wacky, but at the same time finding out, because this is the fourth book in the series, finding out that actually some of the things they're publishing, which they think is, you know, conspiracy, is true. And there is actually, underneath the real world, a world of magic and ghosts and ghouls and monsters and vampires and werewolves, and these things really exist. And then there's a very, very delicate truce between two groups of people, the magical people and the founders, who are powerful but do not have the power of the witches. Brilliant book. Brilliant. It's very much it very much feels like Terry Pratchett. And that's the highest praise I can give this author. His sense of humour throughout of it. I mean, one of the characters lives on a houseboat, and he can only ever tell the truth, and his companion is a talking dog. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant. If you love Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, that kind of twisted humour, where they take a sentence and you think it's going to start somewhere else and then it veers off, you will love these books. This is the fourth in the series, as I said, and this one is, all about love and what you would do for love. And but again, with all these mad characters in it, absolutely brilliant. Loved it. So I think that's me done. November. On to December, which is a little bit more of a loosey-goosey TBR, because I will be starting my book advent today. One book every day for 24 days, which I'll be posting on Instagram and Book Talk, because you can only do a short on here for a minute, and I can't. It's impossible for me to talk for a minute. So, but yeah, a book a day. I've got 24 books there. I haven't got anything for the 25th because I'm obviously getting loads of books for Christmas. So the 25th will be me opening them. But yeah, 25. And you can see that I've just moved my phone. There. 25 sleeps till Christmas. Don't you feel like December's kind of snuck up on us? Do you know what I mean? Suddenly seems to be here. I've got to wrap up my presents this weekend because my sister and her wife are coming next week to collect them. Because obviously they're all in the Midlands and I'm in Devon. So they come and collect the presents and take them up and bring my presents down. So I do need to get myself organised. But anyway, my loves, I hope you're well. I hope you're keeping warm. I hope you're keeping hydrated. And I hope you're reading fabulous books. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.